This is a brake pad change on my 2005 R1. I started by putting the back wheel on a stand, then the front wheel on a stand. The stands aren't really needed, but it makes it easier and it helped for filming. Next, I removed the two front brake caliper bolts from each side of the wheel. To remove the pads, I removed the brake pad clips first. They look just like cotter pins. Then, I cleaned the brakes with brake cleaner to make removing the pin easier. I removed the brake pad pin by sliding it out the side of the caliper. Then I removed the brake pad spring. There goes the brake pad spring. And finally, I removed the brake pads. They slide right out. The brake pad's wear limit is listed in the service manual. Before installing the new pads, I checked that they exactly matched the old pads. Here's what the pieces look like laid out together. Now it's time to install the new pads. I put the pads in first. Always install new brake pads, brake pad shims, and a brake pad spring as a set. I lined up the brake pad pin to be ready for the spring. I installed the spring and slid the brake pad pin through the brake pad spring. Then I put the brake pad clips through the holes in the brake pad pin. It was easier to do this by hand than by using the needle nose pliers. Here are the brake pads installed in the caliper. Time to mount the caliper back onto the rotor. I made sure the pads have a gap between them so they'll fit onto the rotor. I slid the caliper onto the rotor. Then I used the two bolts to hold the caliper. I tightened the bolts, and since this bike has dual front disc brakes, I repeated the whole brake pad change on the other side. And finally, I pumped the brake pad lever to seat the new brakes.